Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into a story that feels less like a film history lesson and more like something conjured from the internet's darkest corners. The subject today, the whispered legend of a movie called Antrum.
And based on the stack of source material you've brought, online forum posts, testimonials, collections of alleged details, Antrim isn't really treated as just a film. It's discussed more like an entity, maybe a curse, something potentially captured on tape or, well, digital file.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to sift through these online accounts and extract the core nuggets of knowledge and insight. What are people really saying about this mysterious film, and what does the legend itself tell us? It's kind of your shortcut to understanding this strange corner of internet lore.
Right. So where do we start? Let's go to the very beginning. As pieced together from these sources, how does the legend say Antrim first appeared?
Well, the accounts all point to a pretty fascinating origin story, or maybe a lack thereof. There's no mention of a studio, no credited director in the traditional sense. It simply showed up.
Almost spontaneously, according to the legend. And its initial forms, described in forum posts from the late 90s, were far from polished. We're talking grainy VHS rips circulated on forgotten corners of the early internet.
Right, definitely low fidelity beginnings. But what's striking is the idea, repeatedly mentioned in the sources, that these weren't just copies. There's this chilling theory that the film itself was somehow alive, changing.
Yes, the sources frequently describe different versions of Antrim being found, each one subtly varied, yet each copy claiming to be the original. The legend argues the film was mutating, adapting, spreading like a digital contagion through these scattered iterations online. It wasn't just data being copied, it was something evolving.
That idea of a mutating film is unsettling on its own. Now, on the surface, the film's premise sounds like, well, classic horror. What's the basic setup described in the sources?
It's deceptively simple. A seemingly 1970s-era horror movie about two siblings. They venture into woods locals claim are the devil's own territory, and they attempt to dig a hole all the way to hell.
Okay, straightforward enough. But the real horror, according to the deep dive into these online discussions, isn't the visible plot. It's what's allegedly hidden within the film itself.
Right, and this is where the claims from the sources get really specific about its purported danger. People discuss alleged hidden elements designed to affect the viewer subconsciously. We're talking subliminal frames, images flash for just milliseconds, too fast to consciously register, demonic sigils woven into the visuals, and unsettling audio frequencies buried just below the surface of the soundtrack.
And what's the supposed effect of these hidden layers, according to these online accounts?
Well, the legend claims these elements bypass conscious defenses, working on a deeper primal level. They're said to gnaw at the subconscious, instilling this pervasive sense of dread or unease that lingers long after viewing. It's not just watching a film, it's allegedly being exposed to something hidden within it.
And the legend surrounding Antrim builds on that foundation of subconscious unease with something far more explicit and terrifying. The whispers of death tolls.
This is a recurring, chilling claim across the sources. The belief that with each appearance or circulation of a new copy of Antrim, alleged lists would surface. Lists claiming to document viewers who met tragic, often bizarre, ends shortly after watching the film. It really solidifies the idea of a physical, real-world consequence to viewing.
And your source material gives us a compelling, specific example of someone who reportedly interacted with this legend, the story of Elias.
Right, Elias. He's presented in these online testimonials as a classic figure, a film student steeped in horror history, but fundamentally a skeptic. He was drawn to Antrim precisely because of the outrageous claims, the curse, the death tolls, which he initially dismissed as an elaborate urban legend. Perfect fodder for study, he thought.
So he sought it out, almost daring it to be real. How is his viewing experience described in these sources?
The accounts say he found a rough online copy late one night during a storm, which, adds to the atmosphere. The video was degraded, the audio crackled, and the film started with something unexpected. This peculiar, lengthy disclaimer or legal waiver, warning of potential dangers.
And being the skeptic, these sources say he just scoffed.
Yeah, scoffed and fast-forwarded right through the warnings, ignored the preamble entirely. As he watched, though, a subtle unease began to creep in. The accounts note the performances, while maybe amateurish, had this disturbing authenticity. The woods on screen felt oppressive, described as though they breathed, the camera lingering in ways that felt almost predatory.
He tried to tell himself it was just good atmosphere, effective, if maybe crude, filmmaking. But then stranger things started happening, as the sources describe it.
Yes, the narrative details specific moments that broke through that general unease. A fleeting, distorted face in the corner of the frame, gone in an instant. A sudden animalistic shriek masked by the film's score. He'd try to rewind, scrub frame by frame, but find nothing there.
So he convinced himself it was his imagination playing tricks.
Exactly, chalked it up to the late hour, the storm, maybe the power of suggestion from the legend he was investigating.
But that feeling, that cold knot of unease, it stayed with him after the credits rolled.
It did. He finished the film feeling drained. And then the unsettling dreams began, as reported by those supposedly close to the story. Vivid nightmares of gnarled trees, damp earth, and whispers seeming to emanate from the air around him.
And the oddities didn't stay confined to the film or his dreams, did they? The accounts detail a string of, well, minor misfortunes that followed his viewing.
Yeah, like his laptop crashed, wiping months of work on his thesis. His car broke down unexpectedly. A persistent, inexplicable cough developed. He tried to rationalize the just random bad luck, right? But the whispers of the Antrum legend, the stories of the curse, started echoing in his mind, made him question the coincidences.
And then the reported escalation. It went from bad luck to something far more direct and sinister.
The phone calls began, silent at first, then just distorted breathing on the other end. Finally, a voice, raspy and chilling, whispering his name. This is the turning point, according to the sources, where Elias's skepticism really started to fracture. He began remembering the disclaimers, the chilling death tolls he'd initially dismissed so easily.
Wow. So this phase sounds less like a skeptic studying an urban legend and more like someone getting gripped by it. The sources describe him diving into the deepest online shadows.
Exactly. He moved from detached observer to frantic researcher. He navigated encrypted messages, found these hidden forums filled with desperate warnings, harrowing personal testimonials, and chilling theories about what Antrum actually was.
And what kind of theories were circulating in these hidden online spaces based on what the sources reveal?
Oh, the theories presented in the sources are wild and varied. Some believed Antrum was a genuine ritualistic film, imbued with dark magic, something actually dangerous. Others argued it was a sophisticated psychological experiment designed to induce mass fear or paranoia through media manipulation.
Like a weaponized film.
Sort of, yeah. Or maybe something else entirely. The theories were all over the place.
And as he researched, how did his own state change, according to these accounts?
The sources describe a rapid deterioration. He became increasingly paranoid. He reported seeing that distorted face he'd glimpsed in the film appearing in reflections, mirrors, windows. He constantly felt watched. The whispers seemed to follow him everywhere. The belief took hold that the film hadn't just been viewed, it had somehow attached itself to him.
There's a specific terrifying phrase that seems to have punctuated this descent, mentioned in the sources.
Yes, apparently the whispers he heard coalesced into a distinct, chilling phrase. You dug too deep.
Chilling. And the accounts say this led to a desperate, almost compulsive need to rewatch the film.
With desperate clarity is how it's put, searching for answers, for key to what was happening to him. And in this state, he began to notice details he'd initially missed or dismissed. Subtle camera movements that mimic the presence of something unseen watching the characters. The ambient woods sounds in the film, sometimes sounding unsettlingly like human whispers. And a recurring, intricate sigil, almost subliminal, appearing throughout the movie.
The story presented in the sources doesn't end well for Elias, does it? At least not according to the online community where this legend thrives.
No. His decline was visible to those around him, erratic behavior, severe weight loss, apparently flinching violently at sudden noises. The official story, as reported in some accounts from friends or family who were maybe less involved in the online stuff, was a mental breakdown, exacerbated by stress and anxiety.
But the online community, the keepers of the Antrum legend, they tell a different, much chilling tale.
Oh, yeah. In those forums and message boards, the belief is that Elias became another name on the death toll. Not a victim of mental illness, but a victim claimed by the film itself. Locked in a battle for his sanity against what they see as a malevolent entity unleashed by Antrum.
And what is the final warning that echoes through these online spaces, based on the source material? The sort of takeaway from his story within the legend.
It's the idea that the true horror isn't just sitting down to watch Antrum. It's the chilling possibility, argued by the community, that by engaging with it, you open a door. And the film, well, it might just watch you back. And wait.
So let's take a step back and synthesize everything we've found in this deep dive into the source material. We've looked at the mysterious, unclaimed origin, The alleged hidden elements designed to affect the subconscious, the chilling death toll claims, and the harrowing story of Elias, as told by this online community. What stands out to you when you look at this legend as a whole, based only on the sources we've examined?
Well, what's fascinating is how the sources themselves offer multiple potential explanations for the phenomenon. Are the theories of Antrum being a ritualistic film or a psychological experiment or some kind of mutating entity? Are these just different ways a community tries to explain something inexplicable, something frightening? It really forces you to consider the power of collective belief and narrative construction, especially online.
And the story of Elias, as presented in these accounts, what does that particular narrative from the sources tell us about the legend's impact?
Elias's journey, right? From skeptic to believer consumed by paranoia. It serves as this powerful illustration within the legend itself of how potent suggestion can be, how readily paranoia can take root, and how a narrative, especially when amplified in these shadowed online spaces, can blur the lines between fiction and personal reality for those who immerse themselves in it. It's almost a story about being consumed by a story.
Which brings us back to you, the listener, navigating our own world saturated with information and fragmented narratives online. How do you discern fact from fiction, especially when delving into the less lit corners of the internet, where stories like this thrive and evolve? The Antrim legend, as presented in our sources, becomes a pretty chilling metaphor for that challenge, doesn't it?
It really does. We've explored the unsettling legend of Antrum based only on the source material provided. Its mysterious, unclaimed origin, the alleged hidden features said to target the subconscious, the chilling whispers of its supposed death tolls, and the detailed account of Elias's descent, as told by the online community, highlighting the legend's purported power.
Yeah, the sources don't just describe a cursed film. They paint a picture of a narrative so compelling, so pervasive online, that it can reportedly influence the perception, the sanity, and maybe even the fate of those who engage with it.
So maybe consider this, drawing from the core of the legend presented in these sources. What is the fundamental nature of fear itself? And how can a narrative, a story whispered in the digital ether, even if it is just a story, take root so deeply that it begins to shape the perceived reality and perhaps the actual experience of those who choose to believe, or perhaps just choose to look a little too closely?